CNN just broke a story that has Donald Trump sweating and Los Angeles cheering, and I'm willing to bet, by the end of this report, you will be cheering too. And I'm warning you now, I'm probably going to be giddy with what's coming. Forgive me in advance. Welcome to Occupy Democrats. I'm David Reddish. So, the first half of this week has been consumed by one major story: anti-ICE protests in Los Angeles, and Donald Trump's decision to override state authority to federalize the National Guard and call in the Marines to confront protesters.
We begin now with Marines who are now positioned in the Los Angeles area. President Trump deployed 700 Marines to L.A. and another 2,000 National Guards troops to L.A. in order to protect federal buildings and employees amid the ongoing protests against ICE operations. Now, that brings the total number of National Guards troops to 4,000 in the county. The Pentagon says deploying the support to Los Angeles will cost $134 million. And as the additional military support arrives, President Trump told members of the press he isn't ruling out the use of the 1807 Insurrection Act in Los Angeles.
Take a look at what's happening. I mean, I could tell you there were certain areas of Los Angeles that you could have called it an insurrection. It was terrible. But these are paid insurrectionists. These are paid troublemakers. They get money.
It's hard to overstate the gravity of the situation at this point. Marines are combat forces, not civil defense like police or National Guard. Marines are not trained in crowd control or pacification. They're trained to kill. That's where we are in this country right now. Needless to say, along with Mayor Bass and the people of Los Angeles, and as an Angelino, let me just say we do not want Marines here, and the city is mostly safe and peaceful. These protests only cover about 4 blocks downtown. So, along with Bass and the city, Trump has angered another vocal critic. California Governor Gavin Newsom has refused to back down in the face of Trump's military encroachment.
This administration is pushing mass deportations, indiscriminately targeting hardworking immigrant families.
President Trump doubled down.
We will use every asset at our disposal to quell the violence and restore law and order.
The National Guard is only allowed to protect federal buildings and federal officers. But CBS News has learned Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem sent a letter to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth asking for the military to detain or arrest lawbreakers. Federal laws generally ban the military from taking part in domestic law enforcement. As protests spread to cities across the country, a warning from President Trump that more federal force could be coming.
Don't worry, there is good news here, I promise. Just stay tuned. However, to further complicate matters, Donald Trump, Homeland Security Chief Tom Homan, and House Speaker Mike Johnson have all called for Gavin Newsom's arrest. Newsom responded to the threat by essentially saying, "Come and get me, boys." Criticize this man if you want, but Gavin Newsom is a fighter, something the Democratic Party and its voters desperately want right now for its leadership. Which brings us to today's cold golden shower for Donald Trump. In the wake of the Los Angeles standoff and military deployment, CNN has some bad news for President Taco. He's made Gavin Newsom famous. Take a look. Now, there is a lot in this clip, so make sure to watch it all.
Yeah, let's just start off. If Gavin Newsom wanted to take on Donald Trump and loves the attention, he has 100% gotten it. Take a look here. Google searches of Gavin Newsom with Donald Trump. Get this up. 9,700% versus a week ago. More folks are Googling Gavin Newsom's name with Donald Trump than ever before in Google searches dating all the way back since 2004. Donald Trump was able to make a name for himself through The Apprentice, through all of his business ventures. He is now making a name for Gavin Newsom, who seems more than willing to relish in this fight.
What are the numbers, and how can you kind of gauge why Newsom would see, if we're taking this purely political, why Newsom would see benefit in taking on Trump?
Yeah, why is it that Gavin Newsom is more than willing to take on Donald Trump? And, you know, it's all about 2028, and it's all about where Democrats want their candidates to be. Should Democrats oppose Donald Trump more? Among Democrats, look at this, 84%. 84% of Democrats nationwide say they want Democrats to take on Donald Trump more. This is not 2017 anymore, where the majority of Democrats want to compromise with Donald Trump. No, they want a fighter with Donald Trump. And at this particular point, that is a big reason why Gavin Newsom, in my opinion, at least politically speaking, is leaning into this fight, because he is thinking ahead to the future. He's thinking ahead to 2028. And with a vast majority, look, you rarely get 84% of Democrats to agree on anything except for the dislike of Donald Trump. And that is what we see right now. They want that opposition of Donald Trump. And that is why Gavin Newsom seems to be more than willing to take him on.
In the wildly too early, likely unreliable look at where things stand for the 2028 race, where is Newsom?
Yeah, this is so important to point out. Where is this race right now? The top chances to be the 2028 nominee. Look, it's a clown car at this particular point. All these candidates squished together, but you'll notice that one name is ahead of the rest, and that's Gavin Newsom at 12%. You see Ocasio-Cortez 10, Buttigieg 10, Shapiro 6%. But Gavin Newsom certainly is up there right now in terms of the candidates who are best in position to get that 2028 nomination. And he knows that the best way to get this 2028 nomination is, again, to oppose Donald Trump, that 84% of Democrats who want it. And at this particular point, he's getting all that attention, as we see in those Google searches, up 9,700% versus a week ago, Newsom with Donald Trump.
And what it also, of course, will come down to going forward is not just taking him on, but how and how effective you are, which is what we'll see amongst all of those people that are on that list. Thank you, Harry.
Thank you.
So to add insult to Trump's injury, not only is Newsom now famous, he's popular. People love seeing a young, handsome, resolute voice emerge to speak for the majority of this country that feels Trump has placed it on the wrong track. Americans don't want the military in their cities. They don't want masked men detaining people without due process or warrants. They don't want people shuffled off to black ops sites in foreign countries under the cover of night. And they don't want Trump's budget bill to pass or his tariffs. But I digress. Gavin Newsom is giving a voice to the resistance, and he will not back down no matter what Trump threatens. Personally, I think it's a bit early to call him a presidential frontrunner, though of the 4 potential candidates mentioned in that clip, he is probably the most likely to run. Remember, in 2005 at this point, the names on the lips of Democrats were Hillary Clinton and John Edwards, not Barack Obama. In 2013, Republicans buzzed about Jeb Bush, Chris Christie, and Mike Huckabee, not the rancid taco now giving us indigestion. And, as an Angelino, I have one more thing to add today. When you go protest, keep it peaceful. There is no excuse for throwing rocks or setting cars on fire or attacking private businesses. But also, carry the American flag. This fight, at its heart, is about what it means to be an American. And while taking pride in Mexican or Venezuelan or Armenian or queer heritage, it's all very important, these images need to remind the world that the violence against protesters is violence against Americans, not some foreign invader. Remind the world of that by carrying the American flag proudly. Also, I for one get sick of Republicans acting like the American flag and other symbols all somehow belong to them and not to all Americans. And most important of all, this is not a partisan issue. Protest is an American right guaranteed by the Constitution, and the military is not supposed to intervene in civilian matters. Military attacks on protesters, or Trump threatening to arrest Gavin Newsom because he doesn't like him, these are violations of the American spirit, not to mention, potentially, the law. Gavin Newsom doesn't back down from a fight, and neither should the rest of us. Carry an American flag and remind Trump that this is our country. This is Occupy Democrats.